Hi, everybody. Linda Carroll here from my studio, Gather of Great Things, and welcome to Mindful Monday. It's gorgeous here today at the beach. Sun's out. It's chilly though. It's only about 40 degrees. So, and I'm a little late getting to the studio, but I wanted to get this video in and posted this afternoon. Today, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you joining us. And if you're new to my channel, please make sure you subscribe and comment, please, and share, and hit that bell icon, because when you do that, you'll be notified when I put up my next video. So today we're going to do something different. I'm going to introduce a different style of collage and talk a little bit about mindfulness. And when you approach artwork, or indeed anything, mindfully, you find you're going to slow down. You're going to make sure that everything you do is done intentionally, and you're going to be able to kind of be you are very present in your life. You're aware of your surroundings. You're aware of the thoughts that are sometimes just entering your mind and leaving it. You're also aware of how you're feeling, what your emotions are, and taking each moment at a time and really, really living in that moment. Now, that doesn't mean you can't or don't go back and remember memories or things that were precious in your life. We all are sparked by either a sound, sometimes a smell, a taste, of a memory of somebody that was important to us in our life, or maybe somebody who was just kind of passing through, but who taught us something very important that stayed with us. And in today's collage, what we're going to do is place our mind in a memory that we have of someone that was very important to us and who taught us something that we still remember, we still do, that we still embrace. Currently, to this day, it stayed with us, something that made enough of an impact on our life to change it in a positive way. And what I would like you to do is think back to people that you have met, people that you have loved, people that made an impact on your life, and picture that person in your mind, and just sit for a moment and think about that person. Be very aware of the feelings that are coming up as you think about that person. And what is it? It could be more than one thing. What is it that made them so very important in your life? And what did you take from that relationship that you use on a daily basis, or that you still use in your life? And when you come up with the person, and when you come up with those things that so very much impacted your life, I want you to just write down a few things. Just write down their name, write down how you're feeling right now as you think about them, write down what they did that really was important to you in your life, and write down how you use those things in your life today. So you might want to pause the video while you do that, and then come back, because what we're going to do is do a collage about that person and about what they did that you had a great affinity for, and then embodied in your own life. So go ahead, take a couple minutes and think about that, and then come back and join me. Okay, hopefully you paused and came back, and I'm going to share with you who I have chosen for my person, who is the person that I probably miss the most right now, and someone who taught me one of the most important lessons of my life. And that person is my grandmother on my mother's side. And I was very, very close to her when I was young, up until the day that she passed away. And I still feel very close to her now. When I think about her, I think about being loved totally, being loved unconditionally, being in a safe place. Indeed, whenever I would dream that I was being chased or I was in trouble, I would, in my dreams, go to her house and go into the house, and even if she wasn't there, I felt her presence and I knew I was safe. And I know where that comes from. When I was very young, I was 7. My mother had a child, my sister, and went into a very, very deep postpartum depression that led to a deep depression that lasted for a long time. And we pretty much lived with my grandmother for quite a while. During the week, we would stay with her, and she would get us ready for school and pack our lunches and send us off to school. And she was there when we got back to her house. And on the weekends, when my father was home from work, we would go home for the weekends. But she was very, very important in my life and gave me a sense of safety and stability and unconditional love, which became so very important to me at a very young age. And she's probably the main person in my life, in my childhood, who did love me unconditionally, no matter what. I knew she was there. I knew that she would love me and care for me. Even if she didn't agree with some of the things I was doing, she still loved me and told me that she loved me. So what I'm going to do is create a collage using things that remind me of her, and using things that express my feelings about her and the emotions that are going through me as I am working on the collage. Now, this is different. Our approach today is going to be a little bit different from our totem collage that we did last week. You're going to need pictures from magazines or catalogs or whatever. You're going to need things that remind you of that person. You don't need a picture of that person unless you want to include it in your collage. I'm not going to put a picture of my grandmother in here, and you'll see why at the end of the collage. So number one, I'm going to start a new page. And if you downloaded the images from my Etsy shop, this one of the shell is one I'm going to use today in my collage. And the spiral is probably my most significant symbol that shows up when I'm doodling, when I'm looking for things for collage, in my paintings. Almost always there's a spiral. And what this represents to me is, this is the outside world out here. This is the outside world. And I can walk that spiral or think about walking that spiral all the way to the inside of this spiral. And in here is my inner being, my inner self, the real me, right here. Some people call it your soul, some people call it your heart, some people call it your spirit, but I don't know if you've ever walked a labyrinth or anything, but indeed, as you're walking a labyrinth, you go into kind of a meditative state, and you go within, and it's very still and very, very quiet there. And once you get to the middle, you don't stay there. You come back out. And you walk that path back to the outer world. And it's that balance that I think we all seek to create for ourselves. What's going on in our inner world and what's going on in our outer world. You can be inspired from the outer world to be creative. Indeed, there are spirals everywhere in nature. If you look at the top of a pine cone, you can see the spiral around the top of a pine cone. If you look within a sunflower, you can see the spiral inside where the seeds are in the center of a sunflower. You pick up shells on the beach, and there's the spiral. So it's a naturally occurring image throughout nature. And so you can be inspired by the natural world, the outside world, even the materialistic world, and then take those things within and kind of process them, make connections to other things, and then when you reach the middle, that creative spark lights, and then you transform that to a piece of art. That's how I look at it. So I'm going to use the spiral today in my collage because what I learned from my grandmother was very, very much heartfelt, was very much authentic, was real. And when I think about her, I can still feel that. So I took that and I tucked that away inside of myself. And it became part of me. And how I very much try to act in my own life towards other people and other things. So I am going to use the image of the spiral in my collage. I'm probably going to look for an image that represents my grandmother. I'm going to use pattern pieces of sewing patterns. My grandmother was a seamstress, and she would create her own patterns, and she sewed a lot of my clothes. She was also a needlework enthusiast. I can remember she used to always get those little needlework magazines, and she crocheted, she knitted, she tatted, she made tatted lace, and she was very creative. She also taught me how to bake, how to make pie crust, and for me, baking and creating a meal is very much a way that I show love to people. And when I make a pie crust to this day, I can see my grandmother's hands, in my own hands, going around the inside of the pie plate with the crust inside, making sure there is no air space between the crust and the pie plate. So, and that's probably why I have so many pie plates that I've collected through the years. So I want you to start gathering things together, and you can pause the video, or you can watch this all the way through and see exactly where I go with this, and then have fun doing your own creative journey to gather together things that you can create your collage from. So I'm going to switch to the overhead camera, and I hope you'll continue on. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I told you that I was going to start with pattern pieces that I'm going to use for the background of my collage. And this particular collage is going to be a lot of layering and doing things that are a little bit abstracted. So it's not going to be, it's going to tell a story, but it's going to be an abstract story and on the page. It's not going to be like my 12 Days of Christmas, where you might be able to see all the images and it's very, very clear. There are probably going to be some abstracted images in this particular collage. So I'm going to use I think I might need some more light. Hold on a second. Yeah. I'm going to use this Distress Collage medium from Ranger, and it's not supposed to crinkle papers. So we'll see. I've not used it before, and I'm going to see how this goes. Okay, I know that I want to use this pattern for the background of my collage. And I'm going to go right over the center because I'm going to write about this collage when I'm through with it. And so I want to kind of connect these two pages. And I'm putting on, hopefully this dries pretty quickly, so let's see what happens here. And I'm not concerned about the crinkles. Most of that's going to be covered up, anyway, this is kind of just breaking the surface here, so I have something down I can work with. Now, if you don't have anything that, like pattern pieces that have to do with the person that you are going to collage about, you can use like tissue paper that you like and that the color kind of reminds you of them. You can just use, if they had a favorite book or something, or just anything that will get rid of this just the plain background back here. That's what we're after. So, and I do like the way this adheres to the page. It's really nice. I'm going to go ahead and cut off this extra because I find it kind of distracting to me. So I have my first layer here. And I'm going to set this aside to dry. Okay, I want to show you how I approach looking for images. I have a basket where I tear things out of magazines and I just throw the pages in the basket, and I go through these when I'm doing a collage and look for things that I think are applicable to the collage that I'm doing, and I just pull pages, whatever pages seem to speak to me, and then I kind of get into a color that or a group of colors that I feel relate to one another, and then it's kind of like the images start talking to each other. And these are the pages that I pulled, and each one kind of reminded me of something about my grandmother. I had I didn't take anything off of this one yet, and I didn't take this shell because I'm going to use the other shell. Anyway, I limit myself to the pages that I pull and that I work with. If I tried to choose things from everything that I have, it would just be too overwhelming. I couldn't do it. So I have this basket and I pull images from it, and that's what I work with. Okay, so that's what I had left over. And if I want to find something specific, I do have files, and eventually things will be filed away that I keep my images in. And most of these images were pulled for my my Dancing Diva collages. But I have a number of different things that just appealed to me or spoke to me. This is my objects file. There's a glare on here, but you know, you get the idea. And I have a big plastic bin that I have These are all in file folders. Oops. And these are all images of borders and paper strips that I use in my collages. So if I'm looking for something in particular, oh, isn't that pretty? I might go to these file folders and look for specific images. Okay, so I have chosen the images that I want to use in my collage. I'm going to put these over here to the side, so if I need something else, I can easily go there. This is the pile of images I'm going to use in my collage. And I also found a letter that my grandmother wrote. It doesn't have a date on it, but I'm going to read this to you because it gives you an idea of who she was. She passed away in 1988 in Pennsylvania. I was living in Maryland. In Georgia, and she was in a nursing home. She had fallen and broke both arms and was not able to take care of herself. So she was in a nursing home, and she kind of went downhill quickly and passed away in the nursing home. But I want to read you this letter because it makes me smile just to read it. Dear Linda, just a small remembrance. Buy a bit of something just for you. Talking to you makes me feel good. You just bubble over with the joy of living. Never change. Saw your dad yesterday. He's looking better and says he's feeling better. The blood pressure hasn't stabilized yet. Your mother's is higher than any of ours. We stopped in to see her and Roxanne yesterday. Steve stopped by last night, had his usual midnight snack, and said he had talked to you. He and Katie have breakfast with your mom on Tuesday every week. We are okay, thinking of you always. My hand is beginning to do tricks, so I'm going to get this in the mail now. Keep on being a big success. There is nothing quite so nice as the feeling of a job well done. Love you now, forever, and beyond. Take care and be happy always. Grandma. So this is really, I don't have a lot of letters that were addressed just to me from her. And I'm going to include this in my journal. I'm not going to glue it down because it's printed on both sides, and I want to keep the original with this collage. She loved violets, and she had a whole window full of violets, and I like that they're up here in this corner. So as you can see, I chose a variety of different images. I think you can see the color pattern happening. There are a lot of pinks and magentas and some reds and oranges and playing cards, and I found some words and a lot of different things. And I found some measuring spoons, and she had this exact set of measuring spoons. I found some sewing articles here, buttons and threads. I found this pomegranate, and there is a pomegranate on the collage sheets, but I think she was a Persephone. She kind of lived a Persephone life, as I have done. And we'll go more into the archetypes of the mythological gods and goddesses of Greek and Roman times. But anyway, I want to include the pomegranate in there. She loved birds, and this is just a perfect color to go with everything. This, I just loved this image. It was a plate, and the image of the eye and the sparkles and the stars coming from the eyes, to me, just amazing. And she always made the holidays special. Everything was magical. So I wanted to include something from the holidays. So let's bring back in my journal. Everything's dry now, and it didn't crinkle the page, so that's great. It stayed really flat, so that's wonderful. I want to show you something I ran across as I was looking through my pages that I had saved out of magazines, and this is kind of the style that I'm going to be working in this particular collage. This was done by Robert Rauschenberg, one of the first collage artists who became kind of mainstream. He based his work on the Dadaist style. He was friends with lots of different artists, and he combined everyday things in his work, in his paintings, and in his sculptures, and to me, they're just amazing. And his metaphor was, for his work and his life, was he did his artwork in order to fill the gap between art and life. And so I think his work is very, very expressive of the material world and then his inner world as well. So I think he was very, very successful in combining all those materials from the everyday world to express his visionary way of living his life. So he used the ordinary and looked at it in a totally new way. So I really like this. I wanted to show this to you as an example of his work. Rauschenberg took a lot of his signals and signs from the Dadaists as far as what he used in his work. He would use old socks and comic strips and, anything he could find that he could hammer together, glue together, tape together, and he was just a magical being. So this one was done in 1963. So he is going to be my inspiration for this particular collage that I'm going to be working on. And I'm just going to start placing some images on my collage and just kind of see what I come up with. I'm not really sure this is going to be, I don't have a picture in my mind of what it's going to be. So we'll just see how this works out. I really like this image. My grandmother almost always wore dresses or a skirt and a blouse with an apron or a smock over it. The only time she wore pants, and they were kind of like what we called them were pedal pushers, was when she would be working in the garden. Or, yeah, pretty much. Just working in the garden was the only time I saw her in pants. The rest of the time she was in her, most of the time she wore heels, low heels. She had on a dress or a skirt and a blouse, always a smock or an apron, and she was quite a character. She spent a lot of time alone. My grandfather worked at night his entire career, and so in the evenings he left for work between 3:30 and 4 and got home at 1. So he was gone a lot, and she spent a lot of time by herself. She read voraciously. I mean, she read everything. She read the newspaper, she read books, she read magazines. She was always learning something. Always. The reason I have these playing cards in here is because she read playing cards. And I had never seen them before. And she didn't share that with me for quite a while. I was probably in my teens before I saw her read cards. And I thought, I just thought she was magical. Just magical. And so I have these playing cards, vintage playing cards that I found out of a magazine. And this one reminds me of her, this Queen of Hearts, who, if you do tarot or anything like that, is the Queen of Cups. And she's beautiful. She has little butterfly wings and everything. So, okay, I love the colors in this and the way the colors are working together. I followed this diagonal line in this pattern piece for placing these images. And then I looked at this and I was following the type here in the pattern piece. Okay. And I have created my 3, so I have, a good movement now through this page. And now I'm going to start placing things. I think this little bird needs to sit here on this plant. She was a gardener. She really followed the seasons. She had a wonderful garden in her backyard. They moved to a tract home, but she still had her garden and grew vegetables enough to freeze and can. She taught me how to can tomatoes and peaches, and she would make the most wonderful, is called a hot milk sponge cake, and I have her recipe that I actually wrote down as she was making the cake. And she would make a hot or warm custard sauce that went over this cake. And then she would open a can of her canned peaches. And the canned peaches came from a peach tree that was grown from a peach pit that I planted in their backyard. So that was always special to me. In the middle of winter, we could have fresh peaches from my tree. And she knew how special that was for me. So it was very, very meaningful to me. Okay, what I'm doing now is, all the while I'm sharing with you my thoughts of her. If I wasn't doing this on video, I would just be thinking about her, smiling a lot. I'm having wonderful, warm, loving feelings right now. When I think about her, that's what I think. I can remember one time, she was not slim, but she was little. She was only like, I'm barely 5 foot. I don't think I am even 4'11" anymore. But she was about 5 foot, maybe 5 foot, ½ inch. So she was a little woman, and she wasn't heavy at all. And I can remember one time saying to her, "Grandma, I want a big fat grandma that I can snuggle with." Well, as she aged, and I have her, my legs aren't as thin as hers, but I do have her tummy. And as she aged, she would say to me, "Linda Carol, I don't know why you had to say you wanted a big fat grandma, because now you have one." So, she was just so much fun. She really was. Okay. This is Myrna Loy, I think, and I think she's probably from about the same time period as my grandmother. So, let's see, where do I want to put this? Over here. And what I'm doing too is I'm trying to see where I need to separate images from the background. So, okay. Okay. my layout is complete. I think. I like when the images run off the side of the pages, and you know, it doesn't disturb your mind when you look at it, because your mind will finish the picture, so it's not disturbing at all. But I think that this number one, it makes me happy to look at it. It's playful, it's whimsical, like she was. She would do the most fun things. There was a big hill in her backyard, and we would get cardboard boxes and slide down this hill. I mean, just fly down this hill in the summertime. And she would come out and she would watch us doing that, and all of a sudden she would grab a cardboard box and she would go flying down the hill too, and laugh all the way down. So she was very creative. I know that inspired me. She did inspire me to be, and still does, very, very creative. I still feel her, and I still see her hands, as I said, when I make a pie crust. And so I think this kind of spiral of time continues on from her to my mother, and to me, from her to me directly. And I love this. I love this layout. So much of her, I feel, is in her mystical side, her creative side, her curiosity, her unconditional love for me and my brother and my sister. I can just feel it in here. She was sparkly. She was sometimes a little dark. She had kind of a not the happiest life by any means. She had 6 children, and only 2 lived to see adulthood. 2 babies died within, and they were twins, died within 3 or 4 days of their birth. My grandmother was Rh negative and my grandfather was positive, and the babies were born positive, and she allowed the doctors to do experimentation upon them to try and keep them alive, but they just didn't know enough at that time. Then she had another child who died not too long after he was born, and then they had another little boy who lived but passed away when he was about 3, I think. And then there was my mother and her oldest sister. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue this all down. Okay, I have all my pieces glued down in place. I kind of like this distress collage medium, but it does, you know, if you're not real careful with it, it does kind of wrinkle your images, especially if the paper is really thin. So I may go back to my glue stick, and I do like the matte finish that it gives to even the shiny magazine images. I do like that. So I think I'm going to go back to gluing everything down securely with the glue stick. And see, the heavier paper, it's fine. Like for my shell, that's fine. But for the thinner magazine pages, it did tend to wrinkle those. I think my last step is going to go in with some gesso and white paint and do some subtracting from this, and then go in with my my Stabilo and maybe some other paint, and subtract other things to make some negative space and make some of these areas pop. But for the most part, I really like what's happening here. And you can see the Rauschenberg piece. I kind of looked at that as for inspiration. And I love the different directions this took. It's not necessarily, you know, I can't cut it in half and one side is the same as the other half. It's not symmetrical, but it is balanced, okay? You know, if I look at this half, it's well balanced with that half. If I look at this half, it's well balanced with that half, and the same this way. I have a good range of colors, but I still have a duplication or repeat of different colors throughout this piece. Even the greens, I picked up some green in here, and definitely created a focal point with my spiral. I have the feeling of a very loving and indeed a very nurturing person in here, very curious, inspiring. She gave of herself all the time, and I miss her greatly. I miss her greatly. So I'm going to call it finished for now, and I'll probably work on it a little bit more, and I'll show you either next Sunday or next Monday how I finished it off. But if you can get yours to this, and you know, you don't have to use the same layout that I used or anything, just play. Just enjoy yourself, enjoy your memories, stay present so you can feel those feelings and enjoy those thoughts. And then give it a try to, once you finish the collage or get it to this point, to live the rest of your day honoring these memories, honoring the way this person lived and what impact they had in your life, and also use that in the rest of your day, and indeed daily if you can. I know I try very hard to love unconditionally, and it's difficult sometimes, I must admit, but it is a wonderful gift that I received from her. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. It's different from what I usually do, but I'm going to be playing and experimenting with a lot of different collage styles and techniques as we're on our mindful journey through guided collage. So hope you have a great rest of your day or evening, whichever the case may be. Many blessings to you. Bye for now.